My dear friends, the experience of a broken heart is something that connects all of us. It doesn't matter where we come from, how successful we are, or how much we accumulate in this world, pain and heartbreak in their many forms find their way to every human soul. Yet, in the very heart of this pain, there is an unspoken truth. The divine is not distant. In our moments of grief, we often ask, "Where is God? Why have I been left alone?" But it is precisely in the space of this brokenness that the divine presence is closest. The heart that is fractured is no longer burdened by the pride and ego that often clouds our vision. It is through this vulnerability that the divine can touch us deeply. When our heart is shattered, it has the capacity to expand, making space for something far greater than we ever imagined. We must understand that pain is not to be feared nor avoided. It is not a sign of failure or punishment. Pain is the very medium through which transformation happens. The cracked shell of a seed is essential for the plant to grow. So too, the heart that is broken is the heart that can experience deeper joy, deeper love, and deeper connection to the infinite. What we fail to realize is that in the darkest moments, the divine is not absent. The presence of God is most keenly felt not when everything is perfect, but when we are at our lowest. In the times when we feel most forsaken, God's grace is most present. It is in the silence, in the stillness of our suffering, that we can hear the whisper of divine love, unconditional and ever present. The broken heart, my friends, is sacred. It is a place where transformation begins. It is a space where we can allow our defenses to fall and in that vulnerability receive the healing that we need. You see, healing does not always look like a perfect return to what was once whole. Sometimes healing is simply the awareness that you are not alone. The divine never left you. It was always there, waiting for you to turn inward and recognize its presence. So, when the heart is heavy and the tears flow, do not see them as signs of defeat. Recognize them as openings to the divine. The pain you feel is not something to be feared. It is a gateway, a doorway to a deeper understanding of life, a richer connection to the eternal, and a profound sense of belonging to something far greater than you. Remember, God is always near, and when your heart is broken, it is then that God is closest. Not distant, not cold, but present in the most intimate, profound way. Embrace the brokenness, for through it you will come to understand the fullness of divine love, the depth of divine connection, and the beauty of divine healing. Thank you. Suffering in its many forms is an inevitable part of the human experience. It doesn't choose between the rich and the poor, the young and the old, the healthy and the sick. It is something we all face in one shape or another. But what if I told you that within the suffering there is a subtle but profound connection to the divine? Often we view pain as something negative, something to be avoided at all costs. We try to run from it, mask it, or deny it, but when we take a moment to reflect deeply, we realize that pain can be a doorway, a bridge to a deeper sense of understanding and a closer relationship with the divine. It is in our moments of greatest vulnerability that we are most open to the divine's embrace. When everything is going well, we tend to get caught up in the superficialities of life. We can become enamored with success, appearance, and external achievements. But when suffering strikes, these distractions fade away and we are left with the rawness of our emotions, our fears, and our longing for something greater than ourselves. It is precisely in these moments of brokenness that we are most likely to recognize God's presence. We are forced to turn inward, to look beyond the outer world and connect with something far deeper. When we feel lost, hopeless, or overwhelmed by our struggles, the tendency is to feel abandoned. We ask, where is God? We wonder how the divine, which we believe is all loving, could allow us to experience such anguish. But it is important to understand that God does not leave us in our suffering. On the contrary, it is in the depths of our pain that the divine comes closest to us. God's presence is not like an abstract idea or a distant force far removed from our lives. It is intimate and personal, especially when we feel the most isolated. The pain we experience opens a channel for us to experience a deeper form of love and compassion that we may not otherwise have access to. In suffering, we are like a broken vessel, no longer whole, no longer perfect, and perhaps no longer capable of keeping all the things we once held on to so tightly. But rather than being abandoned, this brokenness creates an opening, a space for divine grace to flow into us. When we are whole and functioning as we expect ourselves to be, we often build barriers that shield us from deeper truths. The divine, however, works in subtle ways. The space created by suffering allows us to receive what we could not in our times of pride or arrogance. The cracks in our hearts, much like the cracks in a clay pot, create opportunities for light and energy to enter. This connection between suffering and the divine is not about asking for the pain to disappear immediately. It is about realizing that the pain itself can be a form of grace. When we endure suffering, we learn to let go of the control we think we have over our lives. We come face to face with our own limitations, our own fragility, and in that humbling realization, we make room for the divine to enter. It is in the surrender, the letting go of our need for control, that we experience the greatest intimacy with the divine. In our struggle, we are not forgotten. We are seen, understood, and held in ways that words cannot express. This is why suffering can be transformative. It strips us of the ego, of our false sense of identity, and brings us closer to the truth of who we are. When we acknowledge that we cannot heal ourselves completely, that we cannot solve every problem on our own, we begin to open up to the divine's love and guidance. We start to recognize that there is a force at play much greater than our limited understanding, one that works in ways we cannot fully comprehend, but that always acts in the service of our highest good. In our deepest moments of suffering, we find that we are never truly alone. The divine is always with us, not as an external force, but as a living presence within us. This presence does not demand anything from us. It simply asks that we remain open, that we trust, and that we surrender to its healing embrace. When we allow ourselves to experience the divine in our suffering, we become more connected to the essence of life itself. We are reminded that we are not just physical beings, but spiritual ones, capable of receiving divine love even in our most broken and vulnerable states. So rather than resisting suffering, let us learn to embrace it as a gift, not in the sense that we should seek pain or revel in it, but in the understanding that through suffering, we open ourselves to the divine, and in that divine embrace, we may find healing, strength, and a sense of peace that surpasses our understanding. The divine is always close to the brokenhearted, perhaps closer than we realize, waiting for us to recognize it in our deepest moments of need. Pain in its many forms is a universal experience, something that touches every human being at some point in their lives. It can take many shapes, emotional, physical, spiritual, but regardless of the form it takes, pain is often perceived as something to be feared, avoided, or endured with as little attention as possible. We live in a world that prioritizes comfort and success, and pain is seen as an obstacle to those ideals. However, when we pause and reflect deeply, we realize that pain is not merely something to be overcome or pushed aside. It has a profound potential for transformation if we allow ourselves to experience it fully and with awareness. When we are in pain, the natural reaction is to resist it. We fight against it, trying to avoid the discomfort, the hurt, the vulnerability. But in our resistance, we may miss the deeper opportunity that pain provides. Pain, in its purest form, is an invitation to grow. It shakes us out of our complacency and forces us to confront the rawness of our existence. In many ways, pain acts as a teacher, guiding us to a more profound understanding of ourselves and the world around us. It is in the moments of intense pain that we are often compelled to look deeper. When everything is going well, we might take the surface level aspects of life for granted. But when we are faced with suffering, we are pushed beyond the superficial and into a deeper realm of introspection. We are forced to confront our own vulnerabilities, our insecurities, and our limitations. In doing so, we uncover aspects of ourselves that were once hidden or overlooked. This is where the transformation occurs. Pain, when met with awareness, becomes a tool for personal evolution. The rawness of suffering can strip away the layers of the ego, the masks we wear, and the false identities we hold onto. In the face of pain, we realize that we are not invincible, that we cannot control everything, and that life in its essence is unpredictable. This realization, although uncomfortable, is also liberating. It frees us from the need to control and allows us to surrender to the flow of life. Transformation through pain happens when we stop viewing pain as a curse and begin to see it as a doorway to greater self-awareness. Pain challenges us to move beyond our comfort zones, to look at life with fresh eyes, and to reconsider what truly matters. It pushes us to reevaluate our priorities, our relationships, and the meaning we assign to our experiences. Through this process, we grow in ways we never thought possible. Our capacity for compassion, empathy, and understanding deepens as we learn to see the world not just from our own perspective, but from the perspectives of others who too have suffered. One of the most profound aspects of transformation through pain is the way it helps us reconnect with our inherent humanity. When we are in pain, we often feel isolated, as though we are the only ones experiencing such hardship. But pain, in its universal nature, reminds us that we are not alone. Everyone has their own struggles, their own challenges, and their own moments of suffering. This realization connects us to the collective human experience and fosters a sense of unity and compassion. We begin to understand that our pain is not something to hide or feel ashamed of, but rather a shared aspect of being alive. Furthermore, pain teaches us the value of impermanence. Nothing in life, whether it is joy or sorrow, remains the same forever. Pain, like all things, eventually passes, and in its passing, we gain a deeper appreciation for the fleeting nature of both our suffering and our happiness. This awareness of impermanence allows us to live more fully, with greater appreciation for the present moment and a deeper sense of gratitude for the experiences we encounter. In the end, transformation through pain is not about eliminating the pain itself, but about how we choose to respond to it. If we embrace pain with openness and awareness, it becomes a powerful force for growth. It helps us shed the illusions of invulnerability, teaches us humility, and allows us to develop a deeper connection with ourselves and others. Through pain, we learn to live more authentically, to embrace life's uncertainties, and to discover the strength and resilience that lie within us. When we accept pain as a catalyst for transformation, we begin to see that it is not something to fear, but something to honor and learn from. The pain we experience can ultimately lead us to a deeper understanding of life, love, and the divine. In times of hardship, when we find ourselves lost in the storm of emotions, it's easy to feel as though we are alone. The weight of the world, our struggles, and our sorrows can make us question where God is in the midst of our pain. But the truth is that God's presence is not always obvious. It does not always manifest in grand gestures or dramatic events. More often than not, God's hand is unseen, working in subtle ways that we may not immediately recognize. However, it is precisely in these moments of doubt and suffering that God's unseen hand is at its most active, guiding us in ways that transcend our understanding. We often find ourselves looking for signs, clear and direct proof that we are not alone, that God is watching over us. We may want the earth to tremble or a divine voice to speak to us directly. But God does not always operate in such obvious ways. The divine works through the quiet whispers of the soul, the gentle nudges in our hearts, and the unfolding of events in ways that seem coincidental but are in fact part of a larger, more intricate plan. It is in these moments that we must learn to trust in the unseen hand, even when we cannot fully comprehend its workings. It is easy to feel disconnected or abandoned in times of struggle. When things are falling apart, it may seem like there is no divine intervention, no help, no answer, but what if we shift our perspective? What if we saw the events in our lives not as random, not as a series of unfortunate circumstances, but as part of a larger unseen orchestration? The divine hand is always guiding, shaping, and moving things in ways that may seem invisible to us, but that are in fact the very fabric of our experience. For instance, in the midst of a painful breakup, we may not understand why we must go through the heartache, but if we look back over time, we may realize that it was this experience that led us to deeper self-awareness or to a relationship that is more aligned with our true purpose. The divine works not through immediate gratification, but through the long arc of life, where things that seem negative at the time ultimately lead us to greater clarity and peace. Similarly, when we are faced with the loss of a loved one, the grief can seem unbearable. We may question why a loving God would allow such pain, but God's unseen hand often works in the realm of transformation. Pain and loss have a way of breaking open our hearts, of showing us what truly matters, of teaching us how to love more deeply and authentically. Through suffering, we are often drawn closer to the divine, even if it is not immediately clear how. We may find ourselves more attuned to the beauty of life, more grateful for the small moments, and more compassionate toward others. God's unseen hand operates in these subtle ways because the divine does not wish to impose itself on our free will. It does not force us to take a particular path, but instead gently guides us toward our highest good, even when we cannot see the destination clearly. The key to recognizing this unseen hand is to cultivate faith, patience, and trust. It is in learning to surrender to the flow of life that we begin to see the divine work in the most unexpected of places. There is an undeniable peace that comes when we trust in this unseen presence, when we allow ourselves to believe that even when we can't see it, God's hand is moving in our lives. We start to notice the small blessings that surround us. A kind word from a stranger, a chance encounter that leads to an unexpected opportunity, or the quiet moments of stillness that offer clarity in the midst of chaos. These are the ways in which God works through the unseen. It is not through loud proclamations or external signs, but through the delicate thread that weaves our lives together. In the end, God's unseen hand is a reminder that we are never truly alone. Even when we cannot see it, the divine is always there, gently guiding us, shaping our paths, and providing us with the wisdom and strength we need to navigate the challenges of life. The key is to trust, even in the absence of visible evidence, and to remain open to the subtle ways in which God's grace flows through us. When we do, we begin to see that the divine hand is in fact always at work, even in the most quiet and unseen moments.